Hello everyone and welcome back to PFK The Show Legends League. This is part 4 of our divisional previews, digging into the NL Central. We're going to jump in with the Milwaukee Brewers, who chose with, I believe it was the 4th pick in our draft. I should have that in front of me. The 4th pick in the draft. The Milwaukee Brewers, who felt so lucky to get possibly the best baseball player in history, Barry Bonds, and bring him to Milwaukee. I believe the first 3 picks were Ken Griffey Jr., Willie Mays, and Babe Ruth. And so Barry Bonds going 4, I assume he is just as offended as he has been at every other point in his career about how much shade he is given, despite being the best hitter to ever put on batting gloves. So the Brewers, going around the horn, they've got Albert Pujols at first, Nap Lajoie. I know his first name's Napoleon, so I'm going to go with Lajoie at second base, Alan Trammell at short, Brooks Robinson at third base, Barry Bonds, the legend, in left field, Andruw Jones in center, with Torrey Hunter lurking in the wings, and Larry Walker in right. Johnny Bench is doing the catching, and Lance Berkman at DH. A very deep bench here you can see for the Brewers. We'll talk more about that later, whether that is strategy or oversight, we don't know. I know that they went for the sentimental pick of grabbing Barry's father, who looks a lot younger than him in game. With, I believe, one of his last picks, both Bobby Bonds and Ken Griffey Sr. were taking in the waning rounds of our draft. But a solid and deep bench, we will get back to that here in a second. The pitching rotation got Masaichi Kaneda, Fergie Jenkins, Oral Hershiser, Zach Greinke, and Dan Herron, with a thin bullpen corresponding to the deep bench. Dontrelle Willis handling the swingman duties, Tug McGraw and David Robertson in middle relief, with Dave Smith, Francisco Cordero, and Big Kenley Jansen at the back of the pen. So I thought the Milwaukee Brewers' best picks were, well, starting off Barry Bonds at 4th overall. I think anywhere you get Bonds, that's a value. I'm glad this game gave him some respect with his defense, and even gave him a little bit of his young man speed, despite the fact that his bat maybe didn't hit its peak until he was basically a statue in the outfield and just waiting for his turn to come up and draw a walk or hit one over the fence. But he's got the full bat potential with a slight platoon split to mash righties a little bit more. The discipline and the vision are there. The clutch stat is a little low, which I don't know if that's going to end up hurting him over the long haul. But yeah, he actually gets to play every day in the outfield and not be a liability, and so that's pretty fun. And then right after that, when the snake came back, the Brewers snagged Albert Pujols. And prime Pujols is probably a guy who should have been a first-rounder. The game puts him with secondary positions at third, left, and right, so he's even a bit of a utility knife guy, which is silly for a guy who now has plantar fasciitis and can barely move, just like Barry. But this bat in the second round, and just the legendary presence of Albert Pujols, I thought, was an incredibly good pick. And then they took Tino Martinez, which was a guy who I was watching fall for a long time, because he's got this huge clutch stat. He is a lefty, right? Yeah, he's a lefty hitter, and he provides some actual pop against righties off the bench. I think this is one of the best pinch hitters that you could get, and the Brewers found him all the way in the 22nd round. So the theme of this team is swing. If we look through, other than Barry, there's not a whole ton of discipline here. There's a lot of 80s, there's a lot of high 70s down at the bottom of the lineup. These guys aren't going to be drawing a lot of walks, but that's okay, because let's look at these vision numbers. 99, 98, 94, 80, 80, 82, 87, 82, and 72 for Andruw Jones, but that's not his strength. This team is going to swing all the time. And it's not going to swing at bad pitches, but it's not going to wait around to take its walks unless it's Barry Bonds or Knapp at the top of the lineup. I think that's going to be a lot of fun to watch this team. There's not going to be, like, as we looked at the Tigers in the AL Central, they're going to be drawing all the pitches. Their games are going to take forever because they're going to be working your starting pitcher through 90 pitches in the first 5 or 6 innings. I think the opposite. I think the Brewers are going to chase pitchers with power and with relentless hitting, and we're never going to see the bat on their shoulders, and that's going to be great. The staff is also a little extreme to one direction, is in that a lot of their arsenals are really high in break. So we've got Kaneda with 99 break, 92 for Jenkins, 94 for Hershiser, 92 for Greinke, and yet you don't see the strikeouts per 9 stat, 84, 86, 80, 77, 75. So I think that as we looked at another team that had a similar kind of profile, I think this team is going to induce a lot of ground balls. And I think that this team is set up to have the defense to actually handle that, with Knapp being a great second baseman, of course Pujols being solid at first base, and Alan Trammell and Brooks Robinson being a great left side of the infield. So that could synergize really well if the ground ball staff really does come through. My first key for this team, and probably the most important from what I was looking at, is that this rotation either be able to go deep in games as a point of regularity. They've got the stamina to do it, so they can do that. Or if they can't, then everything is going to hinge on Dontrelle Willis. The pen is so small. There's only 6 arms, so you're probably going to have 2 or 3 of those guys tired on any given day. So you've only got 3 relief arms to choose from, and only one of those guys can reliably give you more than 1+ innings, and that's D-Train. So if these guys can't be going 6-7 innings just about every time out, then it's going to rely on Dontrelle Willis being an all-star level swingman for this rotation to really click. My second key for the Brewers is that the speed of the outfield doesn't prevent the outfield defense from being elite. So like we were looking at, Barry's got good outfield stats, but he's not fast. Larry Walker in right also has really good outfield stats, but he's not fast. He's a 72 speed. Andruw Jones, really good outfield stats, one of the best center fielders that I've seen play the game, but he's not that fast. So it's possible that the lack of speed in this outfield prevents them from actually living up to that high fielding stat, unless somebody like a Torrey Hunter gets some more playing time. Let's see if, or I guess Bobby Bonds could get in there and chase down some fly balls. But somebody like Torrey Hunter being in center would take a lot of pressure off of those corners to cover so much ground. I know that the Brewers GM did punt center field intentionally and was able to grab a pretty sweet 1-2 combo with Jones and Hunter pretty late in the draft. So we'll see if that pays off for him. And then my final key for the Brewers, which might have the easiest of coming true, is that Johnny Bench can actually handle this cleanup spot. Catchers in this game are the ones that get their stamina drained the fastest, just like in real life. So I wonder if the high pressure of needing to perform as a cleanup hitter is gonna synergize with Johnny Bench being tired, 1 out of every 3 games. If not, it's not like they don't have Larry Walker and Lance Berkman sitting right behind that can slot into that cleanup role. But you really want Johnny Bench to be your cleanup guy, especially when you've got such high on-base monsters right before him with Knapp, Barry, and Albert. So if Johnny Bench can live up to that cleanup role, then this lineup does work. Larry Walker and Lance Berkman get to be 2 of the best 5-6 hitters in the game. Alrighty, moving on to the Pirates. Cool, the Pirates picked with the 9th pick in the draft, and they went with Jolton Joe DiMaggio as their first pick. Some people were a little bit confused, maybe wondering if he wasn't quite up to the tier of somebody like a Ted Williams who was still on the board. But he's really got the overall profile. Darn good fielding center fielder, which Ted Williams is not a good fielder, and he's a corner guy. And we do know that outfield is pretty deep in this Legends League player pool. But that 99 vision, 99 clutch, and really good contact stats are fantastic. We'll see if he warrants the 9th overall pick, but the name value alone, I mean, it's pretty cool. You got Joe DiMaggio on your team. Can you really get better than that? Going around the horn for the Pirates, we got the big hurt Frank Thomas at first, Rod Carew at second, Jimmy Rollins at short, Matt Williams at third, Pudge Rodriguez doing the catching, Kirby Puckett out in left, Joe DiMaggio in center, and Andre Dawson in right. Another deep bench saw the Pirates taking Kirby Puckett. I think that's just for this lineup. He's not in the start. Yeah, there we go. Willie Stargell is sharing a platoon with Kirby Puckett, which is interesting. Never thought I'd hear myself say the words Kirby Puckett platoon hitter. Say that 5 times fast. But the Pirates also went with some sentimental value off the bench, grabbing Nelson Cruz, who I believe is the Pirates GM's favorite player. Grabbing Michael Jordan, because why not have the greatest basketball player of all time on your team when he's in here. Vlad Guerrero Jr., another fun pick for the fans. Jay Buhner, who doesn't want to hear bad to the bone ring out over the PA when he comes up to plate. And I think John Olerud, one of his picks of the draft, where did he get him? In the 23rd round. Great fielding, although he's only at first base. But when you've got Frank Thomas as your primary first baseman, having a solid defensive replacement could be really helpful. Plus, that platoon split allows him to be a really good pinch hitter late in games. Over to the rotation for the Pirates. They've got Justin Verlander, Felix Hernandez, David Cone, Madison Bumgarner, and a guy I'd never heard of before, Hippo Vaughn, rounding out the rotation. James Paxton is the swing, and another thin bullpen. Kaz Sasaki, Armando Benitez, K-Rod, Brian Fuentes, and Goose Gossage, one of his early picks and favorite for best mustache in the draft, along with Raleigh Fingers. Both of them are quite excellent. My favorite picks for the Pirates, I already mentioned John Olerud in the 23rd round was pretty great. Grabbing K-Rod, Francisco Rodriguez, in the 11th round, this was one of the last truly elite closers or relief pitchers at all to come off the board. And this was right before the big relief pitcher run started, when all of a sudden you blinked your eyes and just about everybody who comes out of the pen was somewhere between an 88 to 91 overall. So right before that cliff, to grab K-Rod, who is going to be an absolute nailed setup guy, was a great pick for the Pirates. Back to the hitting side, I thought taking Pudge Rodriguez in the 3rd round was really, really solid. Having that 98 arm strength from that good of a defensive catcher, he's going to throw out a lot of base stealers, and there's a lot of really gnarly base stealers in this league. So Pudge might end up really paying dividends on his value. That low discipline stat is a little bit worrisome, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's a bad player. That just means he's not going to walk. So as long as you're fine with Pudge just putting the bat on the ball and maybe moving a runner across from first to third, or just maybe grounding into a field out that scores a run from third, then Pudge is your guy. But if you need him to be getting on base, yeah, maybe he wasn't worth the 3rd round value. He's one of my favorite players of all time, so 3rd round I thought was criminally low for him. And then Andre Dawson was another one of those guys that I had heard a lot of interest from a lot of other GMs in the league right before the Pirates jumped on him. Great fielding center fielder who can play right and has the arm strength to really back it up. The platoon split is strong against lefties, which again was pretty rare at this late in the draft. Andre Dawson, all-around great player, and is, I think, one of the best picks of the draft for the Pirates. So this team, just like Pudge, is really all about putting the bat on the ball. And I think that it's going to be down to a lot of extra base hits for this team, which is actually my first key. This team, similarly to, was it the Brewers, right? They're not going to draw a lot of walks. Not a ton of discipline on this team, but there's enough power and enough vision that I think this team is going to hit a lot of extra base hits. Maybe not as many home runs as some of these squads. Frank Thomas will hit his share. Willie Stargell will hit a good amount. But I think there's too many platoon bats and too many not complete hitter profiles that I don't think you're going to see more than 2 35 home run performances off this team. Maybe DiMaggio gets there. I don't know. But I do think you're going to see a lot of guys hit 30 doubles. I think just about everybody in this lineup could hit 30 doubles. And I think a few of them could hit 7, 8 triples. So I think this team the key for this team for me is have a high slugging percentage without actually hitting a lot of bombs. Key number 2 is that the pitching rotation do enough to let this bullpen do their job. Even though the pen is thin, they're really strong. Kaz Sasaki's stats look like he's going to play a lot better than an 89. Same with Armando Benitez, 99 K per 9, 96 hits per 9, 95 velocity. That's going to play really well, especially as your 4th or 5th most important reliever. Already talked about K-Rod at length. Brian Fuentes is fine. He's an important lefty, but I think he'll really only be called on for lefty specialist work. And then Goose Gossage, a great guy to slam the door at the end. The rotation is what I'm worried about, and this is why this is such a key. There's only 199 in the staff, and I don't think that's true for many other teams in the league. And if they don't have 299s, they've definitely got a 98 or a 97. A lot of teams have 3 of those. This team's second best pitcher is David Cone at 96, and a maybe more sentimental pick of Felix Hernandez than his actual stat profile deserves in the Legends League. All that said, I don't think that these 4 guys have to be 99 overall pitchers. I think that the lineup is good enough that they're going to be in games even if they're high scoring with regularity. So I think that this starting rotation just has to do enough to let these guys in the bullpen actually do their job, because they're the guys who are going to win games for the Pirates. And then the other key for this team is back to this starting rotation. They have to limit the free passes. If we look at the control and walks per 9 stats from this team, even their ace Justin Verlander is going to put people on base via the walk. Felix is going to walk people. David Cohn's going to walk people. Madison Bumgarner is going to walk people, and Hippo Vaughn's going to walk people. I don't know how they're going to limit the free pass with those stats, but if they do, then all of a sudden this rotation is way better than they look like on paper. But like I said, I don't think they necessarily have to do that. I think this lineup just has to hit the snot out of the ball and keep running around the bags, and they're going to be a really, really strong team. They're one of my, if not my favorite infield that I've looked at so far. I know I say a lot of stuff like that because I like so many of these players. Your teams are so much fun. But I love the J-Rawl and Rod Carew tandem up the middle. I love having Frank Thomas and John Olerud as a platoon at first, and Matt Williams is just a classic player who's fun to root for. And Pudge, one of maybe my top 5 favorite players of all time. Really, really fun team. Moving on to the St. Louis Cardinals, and of course, disclaimer, this team was selected and is being GM'd by my girlfriend, who I live with, Brianna. Hi, Brianna. I did my best not to steer her to players during the draft. Of course, 95% of her baseball knowledge was limited to the movie Sandlot before I met her a few years ago. So a lot of what she has learned about baseball over the years does line up with my experience of baseball. That's just kind of how it goes. So there might be some Mariners bias in here, but I do swear up and down that this team was picked by her. She made a lot of choices that I wouldn't have gone with. She's waited too long on some players I thought were really good fits for her team. She took a couple guys a couple rounds ahead of when I thought they needed to go. So just really doubling down saying I really didn't interfere with this team. And I still freaking love this team. So going around the horn for the Cardinals. My favorite platoon in this league is Mark McGwire and David Ortiz sharing the platoon at first base. Joe Flash Gordon at second, Ozzie Smith at short, Mike Schmidt at third with Javi Baez to back them all up. Manny Ramirez in left field, Ichiro Suzuki, which was the player that Bree needed to get when she was coming into the draft, in center field, and Juan Gonzalez in right. The pitching rotation is headlined by one of my favorite players, Randy Johnson, who looks like an absolutely horrifying figure in this game. I don't think the Cardinals red does him any favors. Jose Mendez, one of the best, I believe, Cuban pitchers of all time that has never played in the major leagues. Dizzy Dean, Addie Joss, Yu Darvish rounding out the rotation with A.J. Burnett and Shane Bieber as swing guys in the pen. Lindy McDaniel, David Wells, and Michael Ray Jackson. He actually has my last name as his middle name, which I believe was the deciding factor for Brianna. Another Flash Gordon. So there's 2 Flash Gordons on this team with Tom Gordon out of the setup and Andy Cooper and his high clutch stat in the closing job. The one name that I haven't mentioned yet is this one. The first pick for the Cardinals at 3 overall was Babe Ruth. And this is going to be weird in this game because he's listed as a pitcher. I'll just go into the story. There were 2 Babe Ruths on this roster. One of them was an official legend as created by San Diego Studios. The other was a create-a-player from some random person on the internet who made a Babe Ruth. That Babe Ruth, who wasn't the official one, was listed as a hitter, and you could actually start him in the outfield. You know, because he's Babe Ruth. However, he didn't look like the actual legit Babe Ruth, and I'm pretty sure that this game actually programs in some fun little quirks for some of their legends. So I thought it was worth it to go with the official Babe Ruth. The weird thing, though, since he's listed as a starting pitcher, you cannot put him in your lineup. You'll notice that when we go back here to go to your lineup, there's no Babe Ruth. So how the heck does he hit? Well, it turns out there's a weird glitch. If you put Babe Ruth in your starting rotation, he'll pitch every time his spot comes up in the order. And then on days when he's fully rested, he will DH, and the game will automatically do this while it's simming. But that means that he'll hit once a week and pitch once a week, which is not enough for using Babe Ruth, especially because he'll be tired every time he's doing anything. So the glitch works out that if you put Babe Ruth in your bullpen, at the back end of your bullpen to where he's never going to be used, the game's like, oh cool, we got Babe Ruth, let's DH him today. And then they DH him every single day. So the lineup is set up so that every time you see the DH here, Babe Ruth will actually be hitting there. Maybe once in a blue moon, a couple times in the year, he won't, and he'll actually pitch out of the bullpen. But for the most part, the game will do a good job of actually making the Babe be the cleanup hitter for this Cardinals. Blah, blah, blah. Alrighty. So this team, the theme of this team is the Symphony of SWAT, which I thought was fitting for the Sultan of SWAT as their captain. There's a lot of thump on this lineup. Manny Ramirez, Mark McGwire, David Ortiz, Mike Schmidt, and Babe Ruth are going to hit a lot of home runs, and it's going to be really fun to watch. I think that those 5 guys could easily hit 40 home runs each, with one of them pushing above 50, and I wouldn't be surprised if one of them hit 60. Obviously, that would be Big Mac or Babe that gets up there. But this squad is just going to punish the ball a lot. They're also going to strike out a ton. So it's going to be a lot of boom or bust with this team. Oh, Juan Gonzalez, too, is going to crush probably 30, 35 home runs, somewhere in there. But yeah, it's going to be a light show. Oh, did I mention Roger Maris, who's lurking on the bench to crush bombs in the late innings? I swear I didn't draft this team. I swear this is Brianna's team. I'm just really excited about it. My picks of the draft for the Cardinals was Joe Gordon in the 13th round. It was a really solid pick. The lineup didn't really need that much pop, obviously, with so much power in the lineup. They just needed a decent bat that wasn't going to be an automatic out every time, who could play really good defense up the middle, which was a thing that this team was sorely lacking. So grabbing him in the 13th was pretty big. I believe the quote when Roger Maris got taken off the board in the 24th round was, "Oh, right, Roger Maris exists." So I think he was a guy that just got slept on because so many of his peripherals are so low that he's an 87 overall, but 98 power versus right, 90 power versus left. He's going to crush a lot of pinch hit bombs, and that's going to be really valuable. And my other favorite pick was Addy Joss, the last 99 on the board, and I believe somebody mentioned he's the all-time whip leader or something like that. Grabbing a 99 in the 11th round, it just wasn't a thing that was happening, and just about everybody was texting me at some point like, hey, is there something wrong with Addy Joss? Like, why is he still sitting there? All the other pitchers worse than him are going. What's wrong with this guy? I think people were scared away by the 60 velocity and the 73 Ks per 9. He's not going to turn in your typical huge ace games with 10 Ks and just total dominance. But with 90 home runs per 9, an 89 walk per 9, and an 86 hit per 9, and enough stamina to get through it, he could, I mean, he's a 99 overall for a reason. So it baffles me just as much as everybody else, but I thought it was a great pick. That transitions nicely into my keys for the Cardinals, because my first key is that Addy Joss actually performs like a 99. Randy Johnson is a great ace. Jose Mendez and Dizzy Dean are good. They could end up being great pitchers, but I don't think that you're relying on these guys to be absolute ace level performances. If Addy Joss can pitch like a 99 and turn Mendez and Dean into a 3 and 4, this rotation is gnarly. Because Yu Darvish as a 92 overall as your 5 guy with 91 Ks per 9, he might not be, his ERA might be 4.5 or 5, but he might give enough strikeouts and have enough rare game performances that he'll just win you 4 or 5 games by himself over the course of the season. But that all hinges on Addy Joss actually pitching like a 99 and making sure that the rest of the rotation gives you the value that they actually can. My second key for the Cardinals is that Babe Ruth actually hits well enough to justify drafting a glorified DH at 3 overall. The guy's not, as I explained, he's probably not actually going to pitch. He's never going to play in the field because I don't think it's actually possible to make the game play him in the field, but he's going to hit every day. So if he hits well enough to justify taking him as the 3rd pick off the board overall, then everything is going to work for this ball club. And then my final key for the Cardinals is that a couple great defenders hide the glaring deficiencies of the rest of the defense. So this defense is pretty interesting because the corners are bad. Manny Ramirez in left field, I think everybody has watched blooper videos of Manny Ramirez doing silly things in the outfield, and he's been given that respect in game, which I think is perfect. Juan Gonzalez is nobody's first pick for all-star defensive outfielder, so the corners are a little shaky. David Ortiz and Mark McGwire aren't anything to write home about at first base. However, the Wizard Ozzie Smith is out there at short. Joe Flash Gordon is there at second base. Mike Schmidt is there at third. Look at that fielding. It's crazy for Mike Schmidt. And then Ichiro is patrolling center. So hopefully having that really strong defense at the premium positions, if that can cover up for lacking defense in the corners, then I think everything is going to be fine, and these pitchers can pitch up to their value. Not to mention Biz Mackey, taken pretty late in the draft, also has one of the highest arm strengths of any catcher, so his defense is going to be an added plus. That's my keys. I actually forgot who I predicted to win this division. Let me actually pull it up. If anybody wants to see any player profiles or wants me to go back over anything, type it up in chat, and I'll bring it up. Preseason ranking. I actually have a full, I ranked everybody, best outfield, best rotation, best lineup, and then I went back and looked at it and thought, oh man, I disagree with so much of this already, so I haven't shared it yet. I predicted that the NL Central will be won by the Pittsburgh Pirates. I'm having trouble actually defending that pick all of a sudden because this is such a well-matched division. Yeah, I don't have a real pick for it. Just like I did with the AL Central, I doubt myself already. But I've already planted my flag, damn it. I think the Pirates are going to win this division. Also, just to kind of look through some of the other fun things for this Legends League, the divisional opponents that are not our 18 participant teams are going to be filled up with the remaining players that we didn't draft, and I'm going to pilot them, and I'm going to try to beat you all with worse players, because that'll be fun. But what I thought would be even cooler is if we went through and took the remaining of these teams and made a theme around them to make sure that we could get all the best players from your teams out into the league. So if there was a guy who was a 91 overall who was on the Pirates but nobody took him, I want to make sure that he's still on some other team. So the Reds, having a mustache on their logo, we've assigned the mustache era. So just about anybody who has a killer mustache or played for the Reds at some point or prominently in their career will end up on this team. And I'm going to go through and make sure that all these guys are rocking the stellar stashes that they totally should. Oh, it's so glorious. This is my favorite team that I'm piloting so far. There's also a lot of just stellar Reds players that actually didn't get picked up. Eugenio Suarez and Brandon Phillips are currently occupying AAA. This team could be a threat. It'll be fun. And then we've got the Chicago Cubs, who are going to be taking players from the 1930s and 40s and didn't go off to fight in the war. We talked when we were talking about the AL West that the Rangers are going to be the team full of war heroes who actually went and fought in one of the two world wars. So the Cubs are all the guys that played during that era but didn't go off and fight. And we can see their AAA. Mark Grace is here. Kyle Schwarber. It's fun to see some of these duos with Anthony Rizzo. Fun to see some of these players, teaming up across history. I like it. And then let's check out the minor league systems. Again, this has nothing to do with our actual Legends League, these minor league systems. I just think it's fun that Richie Sexson is going to be in the AAA team for the Brewers, playing with Jeff Cirillo and Jonathan Lucroy. Who's Don Money? Oh, yeah. My new favorite minor leaguer. Mark Trumbo slumming it down here with Corey Hart and Orlando Arcia and Ricky Weeks in AA. All these box scores are going to be so much fun to look at, even the minor league games. Pirates minor leagues here, Francisco Cervelli, hanging out with Josh Bell and Dick Grote. The Athletics GM sent me a fantastic article about how we're in the longest drought of Dicks in Major League history. And that at one point, I believe there were 24 Dicks playing baseball at one time. So it's good to get Dick Grote up in here. And we got the AA team for the Pirates. Dansby Swanson found his way on here. Rafael Devers. There were some weird things happen when I've been moving all these players around. Some of the guys that had to get swapped to get a Hank Aaron into Baltimore, and ended up flinging some fun players across the league into weird situations. Cardinals were another team with a lot of good players that were just under the cut of making it for our draft. Ray Lankford. A lot of fun names. And then we were also looking at the AL Central. So here's the Sox minor leagues. I did consider making an all-manager team, but I think it would actually be everybody. because so many of these players from just about everywhere ended up managing at some point, especially the old-timey guys. But yeah, the White Sox minor leagues are pretty fun teams. Tim Anderson with Robin Ventura and AJ Pierzynski. Yeah, sign me up for that. Ozzie Guillen, Aaron Rowand, and Yoan Moncada with some Jermaine Dye. Fun fact, Jermaine Dye has his own inlet out here in Silverdale, Washington. It's Dias Inlet. You can look it up. Going over to the Indians minor leagues, some Grady Sizemore, who was a guy I thought might get taken for emotional, nostalgic reasons. Some Jason Kipnis, Michael Brantley, and Julio Franco. And then we got the Tigers minors. All right, and then the other non-participant teams for the AL Central. The Royals are going to end up being where all the modern players are, along with guys who were predominantly Royals. So the Justin Turners, the Lorenzo Cains, the guys that didn't make it into our draft, they're going to end up here on the Royals, which I think will actually end up being a really fun squad. I think Mike Sweeney will make it up. Starling Marte will be in the outfield. Johnny Damon? Yeah, I guess he counts as modern, right? Maybe? Maybe he should be on the steroid era team. I don't know. Let me know what you think. And then finally the Twins. We made a team of assholes, of guys who, you know, were criminals or and we have a whole different team of cheaters. So as somebody mentioned in our other league text, we should have a team of nice guys. So the Minnesota Twins, which is just such a nice city, I guess despite the recent events there, it actually is a wonderfully nice place. So we're putting all of the famously nice guys from the league together. Just guys who are nice and, you know, mind their own business and don't get in anybody's face. I guess that means Chuck Knobloch doesn't belong. I'll have to change that. So it'll be fun to root for the nice guys. Cool. That is it for our division previews for the day. And we are going to be back tomorrow with the AL and NL East. And then at some point I'll get together some more clear rankings for like who's got the best infield in the league, who's got the best pitching rotation, who's got the best bullpen, stuff like that. Hopefully I'll have that out before spring training. But yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.